Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The Daily Ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Pineapple Express, directed by David Gordon Green. We have newly released Past Lives by Celine Song, Pain Hustlers by David Yates, Five Nights at Freddy's by Emma Tammy, and finally, Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese. So it's going to be an awesome show, folks. Stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
How's it going, Tommy?
It's going okay for me. How have you been? How was your week of movies?
A week was good. We are out of the horror vibes of October. I guess less Five Nights at Freddy's, but it's not really that scary. So
yeah, we're getting there. We're getting out of there.
November. Do we have a theme for November?
Honestly, no. November is a weird month, I would say, this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hodgepodge of just random stuff coming out.
Yeah,
but some good stuff.
Yeah. I guess it'll be yet to be determined if Napoleon is good or not. I think every trailer I see about Napoleon, I think it's going to be bad. I don't know why.
I watched the first trailer.
Okay.
And you know me, I'm trying to stay away from trailers this year.
Right.
And I think
more so than me, actually.
Yeah.
So
I think it's going to be trash.
Yes,
I thought it was going to be trash beforehand. Like absolute trash.
It just,
it looks.
It's good old Ridley Scott. Like
the way it's filmed, it seems looks like a cheap TV movie. You know what I mean? It's not like it doesn't even look like an HBO show. It looks more like a History Channel show.
Oh wow.
So that's where I'm at on it. Yeah,
I'm on the same page. Well, we'll see if that's good. We of course have the Hunger Games films. We'll do a deep dive for.
That's right.
Vaguely excited for that.
And that actor is the same actor in Five Nights at Freddy's, correct? The boy.
Maybe.
I don't know. Wait, no. Maybe he's the Maze Runner guy. No, I don't know.
Yes, definitely one of those young adult type of.
I get lost with all those guys. Yeah. Okay, so we have a lot of new releases, which is cool.
Yeah.
Past Lives is a bit of a question mark for me. I watched Pain Hustlers and Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Talk about different ends of the spectrum.
I know. We talked on the phone yesterday. And we went the whole conversation without me. At the very end, you said, "Did you manage to watch anything?" And I was just
timidly
asking. I watched. I was like, I watched some. Code name. Don't ask me that question.
Don't ask.
But some big movies here. Five Nights at Freddy's is killing it at the box office. I believe it's the best kind of Blumhouse related film.
Yes.
Okay, it is.
Yeah. Top Blumhouse opening, and makes sense. I'm actually, for what it's worth, I don't really, enjoy Five Nights at Freddy's as like a brand or a game or anything like that. But it was interesting to do a deep dive into why this popularity is so big, and hopefully I can kind of make sense of it for anyone vastly confused about this. Why is this movie doing so well? So, and then of course Scorsese. I mean,
and we got Scorsese on. Yeah.
I mean, man.
Which we will get into.
The nerve-wracking, the panic to actually have to review a movie from Marty. I was very nervous. So
really,
I think when I saw the trailer and realizing that at some point on the podcast I was going to have to seriously review a new Marty movie. First thought was, oh great, I have the pleasure of doing this, and the immediate second thought was, Jesus Christ, I have to review a Marty movie. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I watched it too, so don't worry. We'll have the two shoes to back you up.
Yeah. The two shoes.
Okay, so before all that, let's take it back. We are continuing with the Judd Apatow study. This is Pineapple Express from 2008, Rated R, an hour and 51. The crew is together on this one. Everyone knows the name. I think this was a big one. This is kind of like a highlight comedy film.
Released the same weekend as Dark Knight.
I did not know that. I didn't know that at
wild?
all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Would you like talk about, suicide? I mean,
But the funny thing is, it created its own name for himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even of the noise that was Dark Knight.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it right away. How was it?
Well, Pineapple Express was a good reset. Folks, after a brief horror hiatus, we are back again with the Judd Apatow writing study. And with him playing third fiddle alongside the writing duo of Seth Rogen and longtime collaborator Evan Goldberg. This coming only 1 year after the millennial classic Superbad in 2007 with Goldberg and Rogen. Like I mentioned in the new Exorcist review, this is directed by David Gordon Green with him pulling his favorite collaborator, Danny McBride. Mm-hmm. And I think Pineapple Express stands out even among a very star-studded comedy cast in all of these Apatow movies, as all this kind of talent represents a perfect funnel for the era of comedy, which I think will only be slightly outdone in 2013's This Is the End, where these names and more will come together again and actually be self-referential in their kind of positions in Hollywood.
Yeah, and I feel like that movie, too, I think it's a bit of a closing of the book, or maybe a starting of a new chapter of kind of that genre of film, totally on the decline, kind of.
Sure.
As far as just being made. Mm-hmm. And then also a little bit of, then they go off and do their own things a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also a break away from Franco, of course, and Seth
Sure.
Rogen.
Yep.
So that definitely, we are covering this as the end?
No.
Okay,
more so just brought it up that you don't see this packed of this type of cast again until that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I have to be honest and say I was a little rusty in spotting the comedic trends of Apatow in this, just a little bit too much horror this month. But like we discussed in the previous entry for Walk Hard, this only has sprinklings of Judd's style and lets that structure of the comedy take the lead rather than being a free-form kind of palette for his talent to do their thing either in an improv way or in kind of sketch style for Judd. That structure for Pineapple Express is, of course, a stoner comedy and has a right spot in the Hall of Fame for these type of movies. This is mostly because its peer films, aren't exactly known for quality. Examples of this subgenre are, of course, 1978's Up in Smoke with Cheech and Chong, 1998's Half Baked with
my gosh, yeah.
with why can't I think of his name, with Chappelle. And even a Comedy Central classic, 2001's How High, with some Wu-Tang Clan members. All not super great movies. I mean, maybe, definitely falls into a guilty pleasure, but not super great on their own. Surprisingly, though, that the through line between all of these movies is not weed. Rather, it's a tried and true buddy comedy formula, which this movie understands perfectly by adding in action elements to the mix and stands apart from these comparisons. I think Pineapple Express is a different caliber because it's definitely a stoner comedy, but it's also very much a stoner action film as well, which is unique and I think plays off well.
Definitely unique.
Yeah, I think in ways this is closer to like a Lethal Weapon kind of buddy cop formula than actually
all right.
The buddy comedy of a stoner comedy.
It's crazy to say, oh my gosh, I just had it. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I guess they don't really smoke weed.
Right, it's just assumed stonerish.
Yeah. Heavily implied.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely in that category. To quote James Franco, though, in this, Pineapple Express refers to the dopest dope you've ever smoked, and this one-of-a-kind weed is a unicorn compared to your average dime bag, and becomes an unlucky mark for Seth Rogen when he witnesses a murder scene. He races to his drug dealer, played by James Franco, to come up with an escape plan, and while their constant smoking results in some unexpected wins, they can't help but stumble into more trouble with the crime crime lord that controls all of their bud. I think the main area you can see Apatow's involvement is in how clever the story is, even within this stoner comedy formula, which by no means is clever.
Right.
I feel like the scrambling paranoia that comes along with this is twisted into an action movie where characters are rightfully looking over their shoulders, not knowing how much shit they've stepped into. But that really does play to maybe some bad weed or maybe being too high and you're now losing your cool. So when it comes down to that, I think there's, like Walk Hard, there is that structure is helping the comedy quite a bit, much more than what I would say we felt in Knocked Up. We felt in
40-year-old
version.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard because both of these entries, I don't feel are great representatives of Apatow. So I am excited to kind of wrap things up with Funny People, which definitely more feels like his brand.
Kind of back up to him, yeah.
Yeah, back up to his main idea to it. But at the same time, there is a lot of, I mean, it sounds silly, but there's a lot of intelligent thought around making this true to kind of a stoner action film in what it's concept, what it's gunning for, basically.
And in that chaoticness, I mean, that's magic for this group of guys making the film and just making it a joy to watch and sit back.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the chaotic moments, it's when comedy can kind of just... I think that's when they're best at riffing during those moments, and you get genuinely good laughs in those moments.
Absolutely. And I feel like I've commented before with Seth Rogen's ability to just thrive in that buddy environment. My only thought is that maybe this would have been more appropriate if we did a Rogen Goldberg writing study coming off of Superbad, because this just feels like Superbad more so than 40-Year-Old Virgin or Knocked Up.
Yeah.
So, half-baked ideas Rogen and Franco are constantly coming up with in their smoke sessions are ironically 100% on point, as the dealers are right on their tail. This also allows the payoff to be comedy and action, with this film having a Pulp Fiction-like element that the hitmen are constantly on the tail of the duo and adding to just as much of the comedy, the action itself, that is. Of course, there's the iconic scene of Franco driving in the cop car and kicking his leg through the windshield. Great subversion of that action, which I bring up because it's something that I praise, that type of subversion in The Nice Guys and that type of comedy, and I think it works just the same here. I would say watching this in 2023, the most surprising part is mainly the heavy canceled vibes of this movie. We got James Franco in this, an early role for Amber Heard.
Yeah, my God, that's right.
Also, Amber Heard is a high schooler, and Seth Rogen is dating a high schooler in this. It just feels gross. Personally, I don't think any of this damages the film necessarily, but it's definitely something that I couldn't stop thinking about. It really was
notable.
Yeah. I just could not stop, especially this dating the high schooler thing. Yeah, I guess it makes us quickly know that Seth Rogen's character is an ass,
right?
But I don't know. It felt dated in that way. The performances are a lot of fun, though. Like I mentioned in previous reviews, and even just a little bit ago, I think Rogen works best when having another guy to bounce his comedy off of. Franco is surprisingly good in this, perfectly capturing that hassle that comes with any bad drug dealer, just eye rolling, oh boy, what are we going to put up with now today? Supporting cast is, if there's any kind of through line among these Apatow films, supporting cast is really yet again another highlight. I think my personal favorites are split between Danny McBride and actually Craig Robinson. I think Craig Robinson is excellent in this.
I like both of those guys.
Yeah.
And we talked about it before, but Danny McBride I didn't like him at first, and now he's probably one of my favorite guys in that whole era, that genre.
Absolutely.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
And apparently, just real quick, going back to This Is the End, there was so much improv on that film, and every single one said that Danny McBride was by far the funniest.
That's great.
He's just so naturally funny.
Yeah, that's great.
And Craig Robinson, he's always just good. You can always count on Craig Robinson to kind of carry that role. You know?
I haven't seen his comedy vehicles like Hot Tub Time Machine or anything like that. When he gets more of a leading role, but he was always the funniest part of any scene that he was a part of. And again, it's this Pulp Fiction aspect.
Yeah,
it's this. It's it's funny hitmen, which I like quite a bit.
And we can skip Hot Tub Time Machine for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
For multiple Kuzak reasons.
That's right. I forgot. I think what's funny in the edit that's unique to Pineapple Express versus the comedies we've covered so far, and then even comedies of the late 2000s, all these scenes kind of run a tiny bit longer than expected, almost like it was edited by someone high. And sometimes this doesn't pay off for characters, but other times it really works. And for these two, Danny McBride and Craig Robinson, I think it really works well that the scenes just run just a tad bit too long, but they're always the funniest beats.
Okay, so it doesn't make you feel uncomfortable.
No.
They're welcome.
Yeah, they're welcome. And it just, if anything, I mean, it seems like it translates how much fun they're having in the production of this film, in the filming of it. Overall, though, I think this movie does the impossible and makes a decent action film wearing the skin of a stoner comedy. That outer layer is by no means known for quality either, and I think this stands apart because it lets the cliche stoner jokes shape the film, but not all of it. I feel like the action is what is the brevity we need to then feel fresh when we come back to any kind of cliche stoner joke or anything like that. My only disappointment in watching this again, I found it to be in the same range of the other films we covered from Apatow so far. I didn't really find this to be a film that I felt more strongly about, or even less than 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Really?
Or Knocked Up. Or even a little bit of Walk Hard. They're all kind of just landing in the same spot, and
that surprises me.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, Walk Hard, I think, is definitely the king of the study so far.
Okay.
Not that it has to be a competition, but it's the rankings. So.
Right.
But if anything, my takeaway here is that this again does the impossible and actually makes some quality out of something that should be kind of just throwaway in this stoner comedy subgenre. And as well, I'm excited to see how that mold is finally broken with funny people, and if I like it or not, and if it can actually turn me to liking a good old Adam Sandler role. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give Pineapple Express 2008 a 66.
Wow, okay, 66. You're right. They all kind of are landing in their whole thing. I guess I was under the impression that this was probably going to perform the best.
Really?
Because, I don't know, Dewey Cox, Walk Hard just feels like a smaller movie. And I don't know if that's because it just did terrible in the box office. No one ever talks about it. We talk about it.
Right.
And that's a very just us thing.
Yeah, it's skewed.
The success of Pineapple Express and people seeing it as just one of the biggest those comedies of the era.
Yeah.
I just thought naturally would be more of a standout.
Yeah.
Maybe the cast is bigger and it's just more expansive, kind of.
Sure.
But, okay, 66% for Judd Apatow. You're right. Man, he's really in that pocket.
I know. And I
Not about 66 is a good movie.
Right, exactly. I think all of these, if anything, the takeaway is all of these are pretty good movies. It's just that I don't know, I was maybe just expecting there would be more variance in between them, and at least for my thoughts on it. So.
I think as far as like big...
And you've kind of felt a little bit of the same in, you watched 40-Year-Old Virgin. That same type of...
I was more lackluster than you.
Yeah, very true, very true. But that same type of, okay, that's where I'm feeling with a lot of these.
Yeah,
so.
Okay. All right, wow. Okay, so 66. I'm just thinking in my head now, I would almost think that Adam Sandler is the worst of because you just have these comedy teams that once when they have one big hit, they just roll and roll and roll.
Sure.
So Adam Sandler, then I think you have...
listen, I like you saying that. I'm down with it. I don't know if that's for everyone though. I think Happy Madison.
No, I'm talking about you. No, you specifically. Okay. I'm talking about you specifically. I think we go Adam Sandler, then Judd Apatow, and then you are probably an Adam McKay is your top comedy guy potentially.
Oh yeah,
because we'll do a study on him. I'm sure in the future.
Oh sure, yeah, and that's who really takes the throne with these Hangover movies. No, not the Hangover movies.
The Will Ferrell.
Yes, that's more appropriate. The Will Ferrell Anchorman type of stuff.
Anchorman, Talladega.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's doing the different stuff with Big Short and Vice.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so that's that. 66% for Pineapple Express. Now, before we move on, Is Past Lives in theaters? 'Cause
No,
the release is weird.
It came out, I think, around March this year for a wide release. A24, I believe, picked it up at that point. It is, I mean...
I called it a new release in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, not a new release, but I would consider it new release in the sense that this was going to be probably part of like a catch-up episode for me for 2023.
Okay, so screw it. We'll put in a new release. So real quick, we want to remind people that we're going off for the value for value model here, folks. So basically, the point is, Vin and I, every week, we host the podcast, we run the website, things like that. But you all help produce. So we are completely producer supported for the daily ratings. And basically, you become a producer by financially donating to the show. So you go to thedailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and through any monetary support, you become an actual legit credited producer of the daily ratings. It's any amount you want, and that's the whole value for value part, because $5 to you is a lot different than $5 to the other person. So we have some set donations, like a monthly or weekly. We have some funny, like, one-timers, buy Vin a movie ticket, for instance, and
yes.
you want to become a Godfather, $95, things like that. Or if you have a random number in your mind, if you have a random number this week, or you're feeling a certain amount, there's no set amount that you have to donate. It's whatever you feel you're getting value from us. Did we make you laugh, cry? Are you liking it, hating it for whatever reason? The cool thing is when you donate, you can write in a note to us. And this part of the podcast right here, this is when we're going to actually read it. Whatever you write, whether it be critiques, comments, questions, we're going to address it here right now. So it's kind of cool. You know, you're showing the value you're getting, and also we're going to take time to listen to what you have to say, essentially. It's a through line to you. So again, it's dailyratings.com. Go to the donations tab, and you can become a producer today. We thank you all so much who have produced. We hope so many of you will in the future. All right, with that, Finn, let's keep it going.
Sure.
We are in, you're going to have to set this up a little bit, because like I said, I just called it a question mark because knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
But this is called Past Lives. It's directed by Celine Song, and this is a Korean movie?
It is, I think it's a domestic movie as far as A24 producing it, but
okay, so
a very Korean story and a very Korean cast as well.
Okay.
Past Live is a semi-new release still, coming out earlier this year, and it landed on my list and was originally going to be part of, a catch-up episode for 2023 that I'm still kind of kicking around. But actually, that list was growing larger than 5 movies.
Right.
So I figured, while on my time away, I was mostly working on a new Secret Special project, but I needed to, cover some ground on this week movies. And Tom knows how much of a scramble it was. Yes. But I was really happy I did, because Past Lives is a special little movie, and I had a really wonderful time with it. This is outside A24's primary horror comfort zone, and even further, this pushes into being a very Korean-heavy script, concept, experience, and cast. This comes from first-time writer-director Celine Song, and serves as a very personal-feeling film. That's not something I bring up too much because, in the process of making a movie, a lot gets lost in translation. But I want to bring it up as an early praise because, as we always talk about, writer-directors, a talent to pay attention to for how in charge of the vision of their art they are. And I would say that comes through. Song is a powerful voice coming out of the gate, being able to create something so personal and something so intimate, emotionally speaking, with this film. The movie is authentic to a Korean experience in a way that no other director could touch. And turns out that is very important to the story and why this movie works so well. Past Lives does the impossible and tries to tell a pure romance. To be honest, I don't know if it's I was walking into this thing thinking it was a romance, knowing a little bit from the trailer and it being on my radar. But it really isn't a romance at all. I think that's the trick and the depth of the film. I personally found it very useful watching In the Mood for Love recently from some Hong Kong cinema, as I would be shocked if that film didn't shape the hidden romance of the story. That's just an assumption on my part. I didn't research or look into interviews with Song as a director, if that's an inspiration, but it feels very identical. And let that be a mark of quality, too, because In the Mood for Love was a fantastic
I like that movie a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. We follow Nora, played by Greta Lee, a Korean girl that immigrates with her family to Canada at a young age from Korea. the story jumps from 12 years ahead to her becoming a writer in New York, before once again jumping 12 years into her accomplished adulthood in the city. But those brief days of sweet childhood, she connects with a young boy, and what starts as a middle school crush grows into a long-distance friendship, and then finally a tender but bittersweet romance. Honestly, we learn so much about Nora, not through her own words or not how she reacts to situations, but through her relationships. And how she became a new person leaving Korea, even at such a young age. She's got to be, I think, either 10, 12, something like that in Korea. The film kind of captures a wonderful brushstroke of an immigrant's dream and offers the harsh truth around the shell that we molt when leaving our home. That deeper wrinkle to her story is what makes this film worth the watch. It's not just a normal romance, or it's not even just a slow-paced A24 romance. Mm-hmm. It's this story of immigration, and it's this insight to what we leave behind in going to a new place, going to a new home, that I think really was what pushes this film into worth your time to give it a watch. Not only is this experience of identity loss fleshed out for any viewers that aren't immigrants, myself included. Mm-hmm. You know, this is a foreign concept, and I feel it's a good mark for the film of how well it communicates those feelings.
Right.
But in addition, there is a meaningful story that has something to say about it. I feel like there's degrees of where this film won me over. It's not just a romance. It has some insight into this experience of immigrating, and on top of that, I feel like it had something meaningful to say about it, rather than just presenting it as a theme for our characters.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem, if you're talking about it this highly, I feel like maybe in not so great hands, it can seem extremely, what we always talk about is fish out of water stuff.
Sure.
And maybe not jokes, but just cliche things that you can almost assume
that
one would write. But it seems more personal and much more just real almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much so that I think Nora's character has a mother that's a director that maybe echoes some experiences of the writer-director song. I think there's a lot there that it just, again, without even knowing the story of Celine Strong, our song, there's a degree there that it just feels like such a personal piece, and good for that reason. Has depth because of that.
And is this all subtitles, or is this?
No, not all subtitles. Heavy subtitles, though.
Okay. The reason why I asked is because then now you have so much has to be conveyed through body language as well, just as like American viewers.
Yeah,
and that's also impressive.
Yeah, you know? And I think it's a good thing that you bring up, because it's tough. Not only any audience member might not have these experiences, but there's also a different way relationships are handled coming from Korea.
Right.
Her relationship with her mother, her relationship with this childhood love interest. It's different. It's reserved. And in that way is where my comparison for In the Mood Love comes into play, that it's very distinctly a Asian kind of romance, and how it unfolds, and you know, the tenderness that comes with that.
And almost more shocking, so I don't really like this actress too much either.
Oh, really?
So she plays...
Where's she from?
Well, in the morning show. She's more of
okay.
for season 2 and 3.
Uh-huh.
And I never really found her acting all that well.
Oh, okay.
I don't think she was very good at acting. Maybe I think she's also in the wrong part. Also, who she has to who she's up against in every scene too is just much more of an aggressive character than what
I've never
she's
seen the morning show, so I really don't know.
So I really don't love the character, and I don't think her acting is all that great. So it's very surprising to hear.
Yeah,
and cool. That's cool.
I think maybe that's again a payoff for how personal this is. That
right.
I have no doubt that maybe Greta Lee is taking notes from the director directly in maybe a shared experience of coming to Canada is what the story is, but ultimately coming to the West, I feel like. A fair warning, just being honest about the film, is that the A24-ness is clocked up here. This movie is very slow. It achieves a good tone, atmosphere, and mood that is worth the pacing being a crawl. but it is a crawl.
It is a crawl.
Let's not get it twisted. It's a crawl. Yeah. There really isn't anything bombastic in the drama. The film is for me, it was kind of comprised of little paper cuts of emotion that kind of build slowly and get to you. I also think the pacing feels appropriate for how the soundtrack sets the tone. In a lot of ways, it reminded me of Marcel the Shell. The score in many ways, where it just fits so perfectly to the mood of our characters. Soft synths, bells, atmospheric music almost. I was half expecting to look and maybe see Disaster Piece again. It's not the case here, but once again, just a perfect match that I think. These are all reasons why I dig A24. It very much equally on the backhand could be a criticism or just not someone's bag to watch something this slow.
For sure. I mean, and this is getting some pretty positive reviews across the board too. And it is a thing of, if you're engaging enough, like if the content is there and engaging, then that's okay. Now, if you take something like A24's, what was it called? Sheep or goat?
Oh, lamb.
Lamb.
Close with a cigar.
So if you,
or worse, Ghost Story. Ghost Story was the one where the woman eats the cake in entirety.
Was it like the whole apple pie or something?
Yeah. She, from start to finish, she sits down and she eats a whole pie. And, like, all right.
And that's when it's frustrating. But this slow, if like the dialogue is cool, if you're engaged with the character, if emotion's getting across, then broadly speaking, it's something that is worthwhile.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be a topic that we touch on definitely for the big boy release.
Right.
This week, that is pacing justified? Is the runtime justified?
Right.
And I think that definitely is the case.
Yeah,
here.
it sounds like this one maybe across the board is a little bit more palatable. But then you take something like Sheep or what is it called?
Lamb.
You take something like Lamb where talk about hit or miss. You probably have some people that are just like would love it, and a lot of people not loving it.
That was a challenging review to not talk about spoilers.
Yeah.
Lamb was hard mode. My main criticism to this story, however, is that it gets very awkward, especially in scenes with all three of our main characters. The film flirts with a love triangle in the plot, and it just produces some very odd scenes. I think this is accentuated because, again, in a good way, in a in-depth way, this film really isn't about the romance. It's about what we leave behind in leaving our home. Mm-hmm. This awkwardness, it just comes into, straight up just scenes where Nora's current love interest is in the presence of her past love interest, and they're speaking Korean and he doesn't know Korean. So it's just like this, like, ooh, your skin crawls sometimes with this. And I mean, if you forget about the guy, it's wonderfully romantic and it's wonderfully touching, but you really can't forget about a guy. There's a bar scene that this opens up in, and then we kind of loop around to it in the film, and it's just like, whoa. How about you take a hike? I don't know, pull the car around.
It hits that hard?
It's just
pull the car around.
The poor guy. And when it comes down to how that awkwardness is amplified is just that it's such a Korean story, Korean experience. Yeah, this writer, New York Jewish character, just he can't compete. He's just not on that level, and the story definitely makes note of that. But I feel like that is my main critique, is that I'm happy that the romance really isn't the point of the film, but if it was the point of the film, these awkward moments would kill it a lot more for me.
Okay.
I was jumping out of my skin a little bit. Folks, it has been a secret responsibility of mine as a movie critic, or a starting, blossoming movie critic, to announce when something made me cry. The first time on the podcast was last year with Blonde, which was just a assault. I think I was just crying because I wanted to be done. And now, secondly, we have this here with Past Lives, mostly holding it together on the plane. Wow,
on a plane too.
Yeah.
They say emotions get high up there.
I know.
Did you hear? We'll get into it. I'll talk about it later.
But anyways, very excited to see more from this director. As if Song can continue to capture such a vulnerability in her films, she will be a standout voice in cinema, and one I'm very excited to see. We're going to go ahead and give Past Lives a 73.
73. Okay. I was maybe thinking it would hit a little bit harder, but I guess for the simplicity of the story, or just kind of.
Yeah, and I think 73 also balances not taking away any of the praise, but a little bit of the boring aspects,
Right.
a little bit of the A24, and again, a little bit of this awkwardness in this, odd man out.
It really affected you, huh?
It's just, anyone that watches the film, you will experience the same. And it's just like, oh man, my guy.
You're tearing up. It's for the guy.
Yeah, my boy can't compete. He's out. He's out.
All right, so 73, but a very positive 73 in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
And
it definitely represents what a 70 should be in the sense that make some time to watch it. It's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, this came out of left field. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
hear about it. I don't think a lot of other people heard about it.
Yeah, it was sometime in March, I want to say, it came out. But like you said a little bit earlier, getting a lot of hype.
Yeah.
Almost universal praise.
Okay, excellent. So Celine's song as well. She doesn't have really anything up and coming. I can only imagine, like, this is going to lift her up a lot.
Yeah.
There's going to be people going after her probably a decent amount of
Sure.
money. So,
And I think the challenge there is how do you make something this vulnerable again?
or pivot.
Sure.
Because how do you make? I mean, it sounds like this is a personal story from her.
Yeah.
So how do you pivot? I'm sure she has all kinds of ideas or routes she wants to go. That's interesting, but
Yeah.
that's good that she's cool. This whole thing reminds me of first-time director, first-time writer, personal story. We covered this one film where it was telling the story of the director, and it was like a mom and daughter are vacationing in some sort of like foreign place, and it's a little awkward and weird. And,
not mom and daughter, husband and not husband and daughter, father and daughter.
Oh, okay.
It was
I forget that it wasn't a big movie, but it kind of fell flat.
A24 as well. It's After Sun.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And definitely that's a good call because that was something that I feel was very personal as well.
Yeah.
Telling that kind of story, and I think my main thing there was just kind of.
How did the payoff was there? I think for the time and the boring road it took you on, it was not worth it in the end.
Right. And it's actually a good comparison because I feel Past Lives succeeds at informing me as someone not in the know of what this immigrant experience is like successfully now and emotionally affected by it, where with After Sun, I wasn't even able to step into that father-daughter type of relationship.
Right.
I don't feel like it related as effectively.
Okay, excellent. Okay, all right, so 73% for Past Lives, and as you were saying, it gets that in the mood for love kind of vibes.
Yes.
That was episode 85 if people want to go back and check out.
Great callback, yeah.
Because that was one kind of our very small dip, first initial into kind of Chinese Hong Kong cinema.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very
Yeah.
cool. All right, Vince. So with that, let's keep on moving on here. This is our big Netflix release. This is on everybody's homepage. It's really talked up because of the two big actors in it. This is Pain Hustlers, as I said earlier. I watched this one, so it'll be fun to go back.
I'm curious where this lands with you.
I was alluded to how you felt about it yesterday when we spoke on the phone, and I didn't want to say it because I had already watched it.
Yeah.
So it made me laugh.
That's good.
Let's get into it a little bit. Pain Hustlers. How did you like it?
Well, didn't really like it. We're back again with David Yates. The last time covering the 3 Fantastic Beasts films, and this time, thankfully, without any wand spanking.
Yep.
While this film couldn't be farther from a world of magic, its true story approach feels very cookie cutter. I would say if there's one thing I need to make clear about this film is that it is a imitator in style, in structure of the true story, in acting performances, and so generic, in fact, that this movie tips from being kind of, acceptable Netflix fodder to something that I really just didn't think was worth the time for a watch. I don't want to give away the goat on the Tommy Two Shoes, but did you feel satisfied with this movie?
No.
Okay.
No, the funny thing, you said copycat vibes.
Yeah.
This wishes it was a copycat.
Oh.
It was aspiring to be a copycat
Yeah,
and failed
yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
There was moments where I'm just like, okay, it's finally picking up a little bit here. It's this. It's felt like a small movie trying to be a big movie in like 3 different directions.
Sure, yes.
Failing at all directions.
Yes.
And-
Split too much in its focus.
Yes. I didn't feel like it was splitting its focus. I felt like it was just aspiring to be on top of the mountain and never getting there.
Yeah.
Constantly just kind of like on the hike up and not getting there.
Well, I'm glad we're on the same
And that's
page
how
on
I
this
felt,
one.
yeah. Honestly, just real quick, I didn't feel like it was all over the place or in different directions. I felt like it was almost too one note and too simple.
Oh, interesting.
Simply shot. It's not TV movie, but just almost like first-time director, low-budget movie.
Yeah, not David Yates.
Right, exactly.
And not coming
right.
off of like the money that Fantastic Beasts made
exactly.
and partying with Netflix. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
God knows Netflix that just, I don't even know the budget for the film.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been much.
Yeah.
Based on the scenes, based on the cast, based on, I don't know. I just getting small-time vibes trying to be a big-time movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And folks, I think anyone could identify this by watching the trailer, but this movie desperately wants to be a Adam McKay style or a Wolf of Wall Street style slick story, but doesn't have it where it counts. I think mainly it flubs its rule of cool, dulled by a muddy ethical angle. Despite any real facts connecting to the characters, the movie is afraid to commit. Like it's big pharma, what we're talking about here. Everyone knows it's scummy shit. I wish the movie just leaned into it more. Instead, it's constantly concerned with Emily Blunt's character portrayal and kind of, again, losing its own appeal in this, trying to make sure that at least our main character is ethical, or we see that there's a speckle of good person in there.
And that's where I'd actually would say it's trying to be in different angles, or definitely, like you said, muddy, because they're trying to split the baby with her character big time. And I will say it is a bit of a flip-flop, and I would say going in different directions on that for sure.
Yeah. Like Wolf of Wall Street, you don't think Jordan Belfort is worth redeeming in any point. That's where it fails in what it's trying to achieve, what it's trying to copy. So this film may appear to have similar narration, a Scorsese-style narration, a cynical attitude, but it comes off completely differently when the baseline is always trying to prove good intentions. It's pharma, it's opioid crisis, lean into it, and that's really my problem with the film. Pain Hustler's story is set back in 2011 during the rise of big pharma drug sales, and with an age of spin type of mentality that is intentionally blind to the growing opioid crisis. Chris Evans' own words, Big Pharma is about getting close as possible to the gray line without crossing over it. The dramatic center of the film is directly on Emily Blunt's struggling mother character, Eliza Drake, willing to do anything to make something out of her life, including playing dirty in an already dirty industry, regardless of the impact it has on countless lives. But don't worry, it's okay. She has a daughter she loves. That's basically the film. Don't worry. She's a mother. She cares for the daughter. Don't worry. I can't believe I'm saying this, Tom. In the same week, we have a 3-hour-plus film, but I feel like the pacing of the story might be too quick. Did you feel this? That it didn't have impact on certain things?
Okay, the movie lacked impact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It had nothing for me to do with the length. All in the way it was shot, all in the way. It didn't feel like a big movie. And I don't mean that as far as like the spectacle of a big film or anything like that. I mean like I wanted more people on set.
Sure.
I wanted the set pieces to be bigger. It seemed like, I think this is the first time I'm saying this, but it felt more like a COVID movie. And I know we're way out of that. This was definitely not a COVID movie when it was shot, but it felt like that.
Right, especially when they're in like the parking lot of that strip mall and whatnot.
Just everything seemed smaller scale. Yeah. So when you say, was the pacing too, how did you put it?
Too quick. I felt it was too quick to the punch on a lot of these things.
Yes, it fell flat or wasn't quite getting there.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like I didn't feel like the movie was moving too fast. I want to say that I didn't feel like it was moving too fast. It was moving at a too inconsequential way.
Didn't have the impact with it.
Right. So to me, it didn't feel slow. It didn't feel fast. It just felt blah.
Yeah, I'm 100% right.
Almost
there with you.
every scene wasn't hitting, and just this feeling. It was just not selling it. It wasn't selling it,
especially in the drama of her being this single mother and doing everything she can for her daughter. Like her daughter suffers from seizures that kind of come out of nowhere. There is no dialogue or under theme of it maybe being connected to the troublesome drug sales that she does.
Sure.
I feel like that was a drop ball on this.
It was a feeling that I had of every character not hitting their mark. Chris Evans is trying to be a character. He's not getting there. Even, my gosh, not Tucci. What is his name?
He's in the
Ocean's 13. He's the 13th in Ocean's 13. Andy Garcia.
Yes, that's
so
right.
Even Andy Garcia trying to be a character, not fully hitting the marks.
Yeah.
Emily Blunt was good. She looks great in the film.
Sure.
Even she wasn't hitting exactly how she wanted to. When she's, in a way, supposed to also share a Leo character of Wolf of Wall Street.
Right,
just like Chris Evans is supposed to be Leo in Wolf of Wall Street a little bit and not selling it. The accents, I felt, were all over the place.
Oh, for
and
sure.
not
Especially
being held.
with Evans. Oh,
Evans,
man.
and Emily Blunt, it's like, okay, are you going for a basic American accent, or are you picking up a Florida dialect that I've never heard in my life?
Right.
So, and no one was being the character that they were clearly supposed to be, and it was just kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like, a smaller, lower budget, kind of unaccomplished film.
Yeah. And maybe just riding on the idea of they have this kind of semi-electric premise, this opioid crisis idea, this true story angle that
is that a
could
complete
be.
True story? I couldn't even pick this up.
I don't know. I was doing some research, but I honestly got tired of it.
I was putting it on the site, getting ready, and I was shocked that history wasn't even part of the description of it, or history, or even like a bio kind of pick type thing.
I think even connected around the IPO of their company in the story, I think names are swapped, possibly for some legality of it.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, that's where in my summary it's kind of inspired by Big Pharma at this time, and then also opioid crisis. So. Circling back a little bit just to that impact, though, folks, the rapid rise of these drugs and how quickly the doctor-partner programs lost control feels rushed. And it's no doubt a byproduct of the style this movie is going for. It's trying to go for this slick appeal too much that I feel like it loses its own beats. Even if the nonfiction aspects line up here, the dramatic beats of the story do not feel earned, and most of all, this affects Blunt's character as, both sides of her rough beginning to rapid success feels like it's on rails. And no time to impact the viewer.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And we should also know, just because we're kind of going back and forth with it, the whole, when we're talking about the opioid stuff going on in Big Pharma, we're talking about the direct doctor and provider relationship.
Yes.
And trying to get more and more doctors to write the scripts.
Yeah, very specifically Big Pharma sales.
Right.
And the sales floor is where really this Wolf of Wall Street comes into play.
Yeah. Oh, pushing the numbers, got to sell more type deal. Just terrible people. But that's really what the film is telling on the Big Pharma. Because Big Pharma, you can go in so many different directions.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely.
But yeah, it's very much focused on that pharma-doctor relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to your point with Emily Blunt, it's being on rails is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
When you want the film to be a chaotic film.
Yeah.
You want it to move almost at a weird pace, or let the characters run a little bit wild.
Yeah.
Because when Chris Evans is running wild, it's like, he's not doing it.
Right. Yeah, there's even a scene like he just does a line of coke out of nowhere of in the back room. I was just like, we didn't establish he has a coke habit. He just does it now. On that note, I really hate to say it, but post MCU Chris Evans disappoints yet again here. That floppy accent work, the sales bravado, it brings nothing original to the character. I'll maybe give a slight credit or a slight praise to the authenticity of how that sales floor feels, and how this character specifically is always bending the rules, misguided by growth. But I have yet to see Evans take on a role that shows range. Maybe something like Snowpiercer. Not even saying it's a huge role for him, but he's fallen completely backwards into his pre-MCU experience of just average dickhead in these roles.
Yeah. When you make the comment of post-MCU Chris Evans, it's just like, was he good at pre-MCU Chris Evans good?
Well, I guess, I go back to Snowpiercer, that I was like, I said to myself, wow, he's trying to do something different than, in the midst of the Captain America vibes. Pre that, though, he's just always been a dickhead. We look at Gray Man, we look at this. He's just back in that dickhead role.
I forgot about the Gray Man. Yeah,
I wanted progression to him.
I don't think we're gonna get it.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Not impressed by him.
I'm definitely trying to give him a shot, but yeah, this is not looking good.
His accent was bad.
Yeah, it's just bad.
It's all over the place.
Right. That's about all my thoughts, though. I feel the movie fumbles what is a dynamite premise. Grifters and the opioid crisis is something that sounds perfect for a movie, and even sounds exciting to be on streaming, where potentially it could punch even harder without any concerns of, how many people are actually filling seats. But when the priorities of the story shift to more personal matters, And the film loses mostly everything it has built up for itself. Its style is purely surface level, and to deliver a generic redemption arc that, once again, I just don't find was worth the time watching, we're going to go ahead and give Pain Hustlers a 37.
Wow, 37.
Yeah.
More than acceptable.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I don't have a Tommy Two Shoes for this. I don't care much at all about this film.
I like that simultaneously for Tommy Two Shoes, no shoes, and then no shoes conceptually are two separate. Like shoes haven't existed.
Very good, Finn. It's so true. It's so true. The 30s, I just didn't care enough. I got done watching it, and I was just like, oh, okay, all right. I mean, it's just the entire movie. It's just...
Yeah.
Same feeling, never stopped.
All right.
For the first 10 minutes to the last 10 minutes,
right.
Same exact feeling the entire time.
Absolutely. So much so that I went back and I double-checked my Reptile review. Just because this hit on such a, Netflix is at it again kind of vibe for me, that I needed to make sure that this was below Reptile, because Reptile honestly wipes the floor with this movie.
He wasn't hyped on Reptile.
You're right, yeah. Just to let you know. I wasn't really into Reptile either, but... Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's all right. 37% for Pain Hustlers. Now let's keep it going. We're gonna we'll save Marty for last. Yes. Okay.
It's the Colossus.
We're gonna jump to our good friend Andrew Blum. What's his name?
I forget.
Patrick Blum. Five Nights at Freddy's, based on a video game. Kind of Blumhouse Productions picked this up a little bit. We discussed in the beginning that this is the most successful opening weekend Blumhouse has had.
Period.
People who are familiar with the podcast, friends of the show, will know the term Blumhouse schlock. It's used often in almost every single Blumhouse film.
And I've had to resist using that phrase so much in this review.
So, okay, let's get into it. Five Nights at Freddy's. Does it break the mold? How was it, Vin?
Well, yeah. It is a kind of a different beast entirely for a lot of reasons. Blumhouse is here to capitalize on one of the biggest internet phenomena in the last 10 years, and I really do mean one of the biggest. Folks, for those of you not terminally online, you might not be aware just how popular Five Nights at Freddy's is. I was like, what the hell is this? This kiddie horror game. Yeah. The game is a horror game series where you mainly check cameras to keep track of bloodthirsty animatronics in like this nightmarish Chuck E. Cheese. Basically takes that like puppeteering thing. What if it was evil? Almost like a Chucky vibe. Toy but creepy. These animatronics quickly become possessed horror mascots for the game, with fans attaching to their favorite hellish contraption. And like most horror games on the internet, folks, it was supercharged by streamers, YouTube Let's Plays, and popularity going through the roof. Unlike any other horror game online in the last 10 years, Freddy is a whole different beast, capturing a much larger audience by drip-feeding its larger story and creating a fanaticism online. And I really do mean fanatical. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And is it cross ages too? There's a little kiddiness to this.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and I would say that's where this movie succeeds in understanding its demographic. This is not for anyone but the 10-year-old that is obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, so it goes that young.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's I don't know. I can't say why Freddy's is so popular with kids, but it just captures it. I think it's probably a cross-section between the reaction type of things. Again, any kind of horror game really goes supercharged online. Right. People want to see people scared and
just
whatnot.
What it is now. Yep.
Exactly. So it was a cheap game. They pumped them out. And again, to this fanatical nature, folks, it was enough to skyrocket the career of Scott Cawthon, is the creator of the game, and many leeching content creators of this brand. And I think it connects to how this story was kind of drip fed to the fans of the series to keep them along game after game and whatnot. Mostly in a younger demographic as well, which has proven to be a massive success point here in the movie's PG-13 rating, producing Blumhouse's biggest opening weekend ever. Do we have the updated box office? I know it was like 78 on the newsletter, I think.
Yeah. Oh, so what it done in the past couple of days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look that up for you real quick.
I mean, consider, folks, that this was simultaneously streamed on Peacock as well.
It was?
Yeah. On the opening weekend, and it had this big of a theatrical release. I mean, that is the beginning of how to grasp how popular Freddy's is.
Okay, that's a very good way to say it.
Yeah.
So it's at 90 million right now.
I mean, and what 20
it made
million?
78. Yeah, so it made 78 over the weekend.
Absolutely.
That's two things. No doubt that the love for the game is what's spawning all of that.
Sure.
I think it's also a thing of, in fact, around this whole Halloween, these past 3 weeks, where those movies would usually hit, we haven't had too much actually. You know what I mean? Like that Halloween weekend, we had Killers of the Flower Moon that came out. And Taylor Swift.
Everyone's scared of Swift.
These are not Halloween movies, right? Yeah. So this is also, I think, scratching an itch for people who are just in that genre this month.
Absolutely.
But definitely the fanfare. I mean, from audience scores to critics, I mean, Rotten Tomatoes and some other sites, talk about a split.
Oh, yeah.
So it's good that we're covering this.
Absolutely.
But it's doing great for Blumhouse.
Yeah. As far as the setup here, Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, takes a retro 80s, 90s setting, mainly an arcade pizza palace, again, a la Chuck E. Cheese or whatever your regional flavor of that is. I know in the Midwest they have a different, it's not Chuck E. Cheese, and degrades it into a rotting home for puppet characters inside. We follow Josh Hutcherson playing a desperate older brother looking to keep custody of his kid sister, and will do anything, including a nightmarish job in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The pizzeria has been linked to missing children, and we discover our main character also has some trauma in his past that strikes a similar nerve. Little do we know, the sister he takes this creepy job for might be the link to finding out what's wrong at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I'm so tired of saying Freddy Fazbear's Pizza or Five Nights at Freddy's. It's too much. Folks, in this game, it is about jump scares. It's exclusively jump scares.
Okay.
So I expected a shit ton of jump scares in a Blumhouse movie. So I kind of was going into it. But shockingly, the movie holds its punches for a good 40 minutes while it builds some tension elsewhere. At no point in the praise that I may give this film am I saying it is the best thing ever. But you have to understand, with things like Smile, things like Megan, things like Exorcist Believer, it's kind of anywhere but up in a lot of scenarios here. The script, I think, succeeds in giving a deeper narrative to the missing children cases right away, something that was only sprinkled across the games from my understanding. And while this understory was certainly key to the fanaticism and this kind of drip-fed aspect earlier to the success of this brand, this being a movie needed something more to go off of. Shifting the focus to being more about these children changes the story significantly and makes it more of a mystery than a scares per minute version, as in its video game counterpart.
Yeah.
It's more of a kind of a mystery unfolding of where are these missing children going, how does it relate to the pizzeria, versus just constant jump scares like it is in its video game version.
Actually building up a story a little bit.
Right. Unexpected. Wow. Is that accomplishing anything stellar? No. You got to understand, this is high praise for a Blumhouse film.
Yeah.
And I think the movie does achieve some interesting things. So, if I'm being honest, a lot peppers the movie with negative marks for me. The script and acting usually produces all the bad spots. There's like this, I want to say intentional. Mm-hmm. I want to say intended for comedy, but characters are very unhinged. It could just be seen as bad acting. I kind of think it's just bad acting. It could be a little tongue-in-cheek. And it could be a little...
What do you mean unhinged?
Everyone just talks like a psychopath in this.
Oh, okay.
Everyone talks like they're an American Psycho or something like that.
Gotcha, right.
And I think part of that could be there. This production team, Scott Cawthon, the creator of the games, is in the writing credit as well.
Time.
So maybe it's his own flair. I don't know. But mostly everyone is really bad in this.
Okay.
Except for maybe Matthew Lillard, who slightly strikes a balance of creepy and bad. Also, there's a lot of online love for him coming back, as the old live-action Scooby-Doo films are pretty revered now.
He plays old
Scoob.
What the hell is that character's name?
Shaggy.
Yeah.
Come on. So him coming, I don't know. It's a little bit of a viral
having
choice.
a Lillard renaissance, are we? Unbelievable. Okay.
Unbelievable is right. Surprisingly, though, the whole production feels almost a little 90s, which I think is where the movie, believe it or not, pays off a little bit. We get some splashes of comedy that feel out of place, but really does suit the preteen audience this is going after. There's a sequence with the sister character that really nails this home, that, if anything, for a brief moment in the story, we switch entirely from horror, even more to like a Disney vibe, which is...
That's not good. You don't want that.
Not good, but I think appropriate for what this movie is going after. Yeah, more than anything, this feeling comes from the animatronics being real puppets they made for the movie rather than using CGI. You know, I don't think it looks great. I really don't think it looks great,
all right.
Especially with how the lighting works on the light velvet or fur of the puppets. You know, I don't think they look great in really any scene, but it does add something to this entry-level horror vibes the movie has going on. Again, I could not get it out of my head that this feels like a Blumhouse joint if they did it for Disney Plus. There is a beginner horror vibe. There is a gateway drug horror vibe here going on, which again, not my bag. Was it better than when they had the same PG-13 rating in another Blumhouse film and still hold back the kills? He'll still hold back the gore. There's really no difference here. Here, at least, it looks intentional, where it's dipping into maybe some campiness, maybe some some corniness to it. And
would you take your 10-year-old to go see that? I'm trying to figure out the range here of the film.
I think,
would you take a 10-year-old to see this?
I think to the point of the variance we see online between critics and fans, I think any fan of Five Nights at Freddy brand would love this.
And it handle it. I mean, it's not overly scary and things like that. Is this just like a slightly spooky night at the museum?
That's an interesting comparison and pretty good. You whipped that out a window, guy.
It was in my head the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit because it's like these things aren't moving, now they're moving. And as far as gore and kills, I really do think this strikes maybe not PG, but definitely below the PG-13 rating.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'm trying to just put a finger on it, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's tough, especially with how successful it is, how amazingly successful it is. So, but I think somewhere in the middle of that, a Blumhouse for Disney or a creepy Night at the Museum, that's somewhere where this exists.
Okay.
And folks, that's where I feel this does a half decent job at kind of understanding the balance of being a preteen horror experience and also being a little bit of a shameless fan service film. Once again, all the evidence you need to see is in that PG-13 rating and the massive box office success. We're going to go ahead and give Five Nights at Freddy's a 50 on the dot.
Wow. Okay. I don't know. There's something poetic about it. 'Cause, I mean, really, when I say folks, I mean, it is split online. It is split.
Yeah.
Okay. And
at most, I could probably give this a 52 or something like that. But I feel like the 50, it's one of those rare cases that it illustrates it perfectly.
Wow. Yeah, we've only had 3 of them.
Yeah.
3 or 4 of them.
It's a special slot. Yeah.
50% for Friday Nights at Freddy's. Okay. I mean, which is 50s is a bad score, but at the same time, it's also, we kind of call it a coin flip.
Yeah.
Because just for some people it will hit, for some people it will not. But also, yeah, you liked half of it and you did not like half of it.
Yeah, and more importantly, that 50 is supporting a feeling that I had watching the film that said, this kind of is better than the average Blumhouse schlock.
I was going to say, if you do the Blumhouse bell curve, this movie's doing all right.
It's doing all right. It's right at the bell. Yeah, but there was something there that, I really thought back to Megan a lot, whether it be
yeah,
the animatronics or a toy aspect of it, and again, similar Chucky vibes that toy equals creepy.
Right.
When it comes down to it, I was just like, this has more going on for it than everything I can think of come to memory, especially Megan.
Okay, all right. 50%, but a positive 50% kind of. A surprise in a way.
Yeah, definitely a surprise.
You see Blumhouse, you're doing for the 30s or 40s.
Shooting high for Blumhouse.
All right, folks, let's just get to it right away now. So, sit down, make sure you go to the bathroom.
Actually, that's a great way to kick it off. Did you go pee during this movie?
No, I did not.
No!
I know.
Wow.
I know. For people who know me, you'd be shocked. I mean, that's the biggest news on the podcast. I didn't have to pee. I was, and so much so, I didn't have to go so much that I wasn't even thinking through half the film. Do I go now? Is something going to happen now? Can I go
good.
now? It's Killers of the Flower Moon. It's more. This is how we open this movie.
Yeah. Did you go pee?
Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese. It's 3 hours and 26 minutes long. It's rated R. We have a big cast. A different kind of movie for Marty, I would say. Let's get into it right away. We'll ping pong back and forth. Vin, how did you like Killers of the Flower Moon?
Well, I'm very happy to say that, again, when I first came across this movie and trailers and whatnot, and there was a gratitude that I get to review a movie from Scorsese, but there was an immediate fear.
We shared it. We both talked about it on the podcast,
yeah,
too.
there was a panic that I had in kind of saying, Jesus Christ, I actually have to review this. And allow me to say, folks, I talk a lot of shit on movies, sometimes because I love a movie, sometimes because I love and expect more from the director. But let's get it straight. My words are nothing compared to the art and effort put into any film, and that goes double for Marty. Luckily here, I have the easy job of saying I really did love this movie. I don't feel like I need to drag it through the mud like I would probably want to do and have to do for The Irishman, if that came out during the podcast or anything like that.
Right.
So just know it's all love. Any slight at this movie, the amount of consideration that is put into this film is tenfold of any movie that has come out this year.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And while
with the exception, I would say Oppenheimer.
No, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. That is the big arms race here. I'm curious to hear which side you fall on. Is it Oppenheimer or Killers? So, while I was concerned I would have issues with this movie, I'm really happy to say that it really doesn't disappoint. Killers of the Flower Moon is, I would say, one of the strongest of the year. It has an aspect that it runs so long. Is it fair to even compare to other films?
Yes.
Every film had this type of runway. Sure, there's plenty of dramatic arcs can be fleshed out and whatnot, but I do think it is one of the strongest of the year. Then,
yeah, I would totally agree with that. It's going to be in the running for sure. Yeah. I wouldn't say. I don't think you have to put it in its own category for the time.
Okay,
we could talk about that right away as far as just the time and kind of get the
right.
Okay, I was shocked. When the movie ended, I was shocked with how okay I was with the time.
Yeah.
I walked away from it, and I was just like, I mean, in 3.5 hours, could you cut stuff? Sure,
yeah.
Obviously. I wasn't angry at any scene being too long. I wasn't sitting there saying, this needs to end, this needs to end. It was really a movie that takes you on a journey, tells a story, and by the end of it, I was so okay. I was shocked with how okay it was with 3 hours, 3 hours and 26.
Yep.
Andrea thought the exact same thing. We both were just like, totally fine with that.
Yeah,
when we were dreading it at first. I know you were dreading.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, oh boy, here we 4 hours of the movie.
Yeah.
So
I just remember my experience with The Irishman, that it just destroyed my Thanksgiving that year in 2019.
I still like The Irishman. I can't wait to review that on the podcast because we'll go head to head on that one. But I'll just say that right off the bat that I was more than okay with the 3 hours and 26 minutes. I don't know if you heard the news lately that there was a lot of theaters taking it upon themselves to insert an intermission when they feel like it. Marty's not happy about it. The team is not happy about it because the story is meant to be told how it's told.
Sure.
And breaking it up, for a full intermission type thing, it's a weird thing for a theater to take it upon themselves to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that in mind, but really, folks, it's not that it's an unbelievably fast-paced movie, but it's paced so well where you are along for the ride, and as far as I'm concerned, totally okay with it.
Yeah. And different than like just a bunch of, or like binging 4 hours of a TV show. I think it's different. It very much is deserved of being a movie.
It is its own piece.
Yeah, exactly. Where I think my only comparison would be like the Snyder Cut for Justice League, or even that re-edit of Hateful Eight for Tarantino. There are... Those feel like just kind of TV or streamable type of content, where this was very clearly just a movie, which is good and deserved of that. So,
I'll say this: I like the long run time of The Irishman as well.
The head-to-head. See, I'm the one that gets hurt though, because I have to shit on one of my favorite directors by doing the. So I never want to do the Irishman. Well, yeah. I think what impresses me most of all about this film is its production. I'm a big fan of CBS Sunday Morning. They had some great coverage on the authenticity of this film and making it. Mainly steps that were taken to tell the story with respect to the Osage Nation, including extensive casting decisions and constant fact-checking of the true story. But not once does this film blare in your face its nonfiction roots. The power comes from a feeling of realism. Unlike Pain Hustlers, where it's just like true story. Can you believe this happened? You know, this is just, it's kind of confident in its realism. Yeah. I think this pays off a lot with Lily Gladstone playing our female lead Molly, alongside with pretty much any of the language work done in the film. That is going to lead me to my biggest praise. I think one of the most notable aspects here is Robert De Niro learning the full Osage language, and might be an all-time performance for him.
Okay. Wow. What do you mean he learned the whole language?
I mean, he's speaking that pretty fluently. He doesn't sound even like he's sounding Osage.
I wanted to laugh as soon as he's pretty early in the movie.
Yeah.
They bring it out right away.
Yep.
And when he's doing it, he's kind of like whispering it to somebody. I wanted to laugh, honestly.
Right.
I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed. Throughout the film, then it's just like he did learn, and he learned the dialogue a little bit. It was kind of impressive.
Where like Leo is always whispering it, like he didn't have that down. De Niro is he's orating, you know, he's giving speeches. I think that's worth some praise.
Okay, all right, sure, yes, no, for sure, it's worth some praise. There's this other scene he's talking over somebody and kind of saying a prayer for somebody a little bit. Again, almost just kind of wanted to laugh, was smiling.
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't saying that being like, wow, I'm impressed by this.
Fair enough.
I'm not. I liked his performance.
Okay.
I wasn't blown away by his performance.
Really?
Yeah, I really feel that way.
Okay. I think that's surprising, just because I feel like his menacingness in this film was so realistic. So did you like him as a villain? Essentially, he is the antagonist.
Yes. Okay,
here.
I liked him as a villain. Let me just say this, and I can kind of almost say the same thing for Leo as well. Very much how we were talking about being on the rails or having to be on rails. His runway to act was very much on rails. And I don't say that in a bad way. I'm saying he's just playing a very certain character.
Yep.
And he's not given the chance to have range.
Yeah.
Because that's not his job.
Sure.
His job is to be this one guy in this one way. And he was very much this one guy in the very same one way.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit one note, but not his fault. There's rails on the character. He stayed within the rails, but he did a very good job at being the character.
Sure.
So I liked him on screen. I enjoyed seeing him. I liked him with Leo or with anybody. It was very difficult to me. I wasn't having that, I wasn't having that, like, look at De Niro go right now. Look, he's acting his ass off.
Yeah.
Not once did I really feel that.
Okay. Interesting.
But I think he's strapped, and Leo was strapped with just having to be the characters that they needed to be.
Yeah. I think what hits it for me with De Niro, and where I don't know if I said, like, damn, this is really, really great De Niro.
Right.
I do think it conjures similar aspects of what I love in his top roles. Max Cady in Cape Fear. Conway in Goodfellas. It's the subtle manipulation that we're never really recognizing and saying, oh, that's the bad guy. It's just that in the way he talks, he's constantly working an angle. And I feel like this character of Hale was able to capture those good elements in those top tier De Niro performances.
Sure, all right.
And at least in just the surface level, I enjoyed him being the antagonist. I enjoyed him being the villain of it. Yeah. You know, I like De Niro as a villain. I like villains period. So I also think just because of this language work, despite, I think it's a good perspective that you brought up that it was maybe a little cartoonish. Was that safe to say? Or what? How would you like to put this making you laugh aspect?
Because it's just De Niro. Because De Niro has almost become a meme of himself. For the past 20 years, he's had his other revenues of money, you know what I mean? And almost taking up roles so he could pay for his restaurants and this and that. Like, we haven't, like, De Niro was one of, oftentimes considered the best actor for like decades.
Yeah.
Like over 2 decades.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up with that De Niro. I grew up with De Niro with, like I said, was almost a meme of himself. And you could almost starting with like Meet the Parents.
Analyze this.
And so now you see this. It's a big time movie because it's not just a massive film and the story, and it's Leo and him together finally on film together. He wasn't. I don't know. Him breaking out in Osage language.
It made you laugh.
It made me laugh because I wasn't seeing the character do it. I was seeing Robert De Niro do it.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? And again, and I don't want to. It's going to sound like I'm shitting. I'm going to be shitting on this movie a little bit. I might be a little bit in ways, but in no way am I saying the performances are bad or they could have really done much better.
Right, that's exactly how I opened it up. I mean, it comes from love. It comes from that the potential of this film is massive, maybe even greater than itself.
And it's just, and I'll just, not to keep on repeating myself, because I can say this across the board with a lot of things with this film, but these two main actors in general, the character is on rails, so that therefore they had to be.
Yeah.
Take The Revenant, which is one of my favorite movies.
Sure.
A lot of people say Leo got the Oscar for that performance when he should have got it for Wolf of Wall Street. Because The Revenant, he's not doing too much because oftentimes his throat is like slit and he can't even talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that character is hindered by the ability where the character is just hindered. And Leo can only be so Leo in it.
Sure.
I feel the same way in this film.
Interesting.
About both these characters.
Interesting. I guess my last note with De Niro before moving on is, do you think, maybe even in that same thing of, we're just going to give it to Leo because he's earned it, do you think this is a late era Oscar win for Best Supporting in De Niro's favor?
Yes.
No way. Okay.
For multiple reasons.
From the language angle to...
I'd say 3 reasons.
Yeah?
Yeah. 1, because it's Robert De Niro.
Sure.
2, because of the length of time on screen. He is such a supporting cast. And oftentimes when it comes to Oscars, the people who have a serious, big supporting cast role, you're already thrown into the probable bin. You know what I mean? There's oftentimes he's in it so much you could say it's shared big time between him and Leo.
Absolutely.
So that's 2. 3, it's because, like I said, his performance is quite good at the character he's playing, and with the language, with just the story it is and the heaviness of it. I think he's automatically a contender, and I would say probably in top spot.
I think that's a great point with the time on screen. This isn't like a Silence of the Lambs, Hopkins getting it for like a couple minutes.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
We talked about it once before, but in his, in the Kevin Costner, Sean Connery film.
Oh, he plays Untouchables.
He's in it like barely. He's in like 5 scenes, 4 scenes.
De Niro playing Capone. Yeah,
but I think he was nominated for that.
I think he was. Going back to it, it is good, but it's one of those classic cases,
and in one of those few cases where you only have 4 seasons, and people are talking about you, and you're getting Oscar buzz.
Yep.
With this, he's naturally going to get Oscar buzz because man, when you're in it that long, you look at Kihei Kwan in Everything Everywhere all at once. He won the Oscar, and he deserves it all the way because there's at times he's almost the main
lead.
character.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
almost the lead.
Absolutely.
That's a big factor.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. But that's where I was coming into, at least with my praise for De Niro. I think that's great though. that it got a laugh out of you because I feel like I can certainly see it. I know the cartoonish aspect of it.
Listen, this is gonna be a long review, clearly.
We're having a hit summary.
I know. But to continue on De Niro just a little bit, just because I'll finish just my last thing is he was known for being the biggest character actor. You go back to when he did, when he plays a psychopath in Cape Fear.
Cape Fear, yeah.
The amount of research he did into the dialect and everything like that.
Yes.
The research he did for so many of his films back then. He was relentless at doing prep for the film. The moment he broke out in that language, the reason why is because for 20 years, I have seen De Niro just rolling through a film.
Right.
And just being like, I'm De Niro, I know what I'm doing here.
Right.
You heard about like him, Leo was being really persistent with working with each line.
Oh, yeah.
And they both, him and Marty, De Niro and Marty were getting pissed at Leo because Leo was just taking it too far. Wanted to change the script, wanted to change it. And De Niro was getting pissed and rolling his eyes constantly. Not that he was phoning it in, but I just can't help that he gives off that vibe to me sometimes.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get what you mean. I think just where the character, I was in love with it, and I mean it. I think it was my favorite part of the movie. The production is close, but that's just a big thing. But as far as like an individual role, it's just that the manipulation that happens with him as the antagonist, it's Jimmy Conway in the last half of Goodfellas. It is Max Cady and how menacing he is without even touching anyone. And I feel like in this like schemy, turn of the century, captain of industry, Mason, businessman that his character hails. It was a villain in yet a new way that still had those aspects of what I love about his villains,
And I love that. I love that. Yeah.
But the tangents of tangents. Where do we go from here? This authenticity, once again, I think it pays off in setting the film in this kind of untouched 1920s Oklahoma. This has a unique feel to its setting, but for how much we get to understand about the Osage Nation and the focus being on the town, I would say the main mover of the story is on romance between Ernest and Molly. Leo plays Ernest here, and over a huge runtime, we see him dip in and out of a facade within this town. To Molly, he is a loving husband. To his Uncle Hale, he is a loyal dog. And alone, he is entirely something else and a little bit, unleashed in that regard. Mm-hmm. Their romance is strained from the very beginning with twisted motivations of inheriting the Osage land, but when a string of countless murders begin, it begs the question of everyone's true intentions. And this type of drama, this type of not conspiracy, but kind of looking over your shoulder is the main through line of the plot to Killers of the Flower Moon. I think my note here is this is where the runtime is justified. This is where I was fully comfortable with it being 3 hours 26. My fear was that I thought this was going to be like, Irishman in 2019, where the runtime kind of cripples some of the punch of the film. Mm-hmm. But I think the good news is that it feels justified for me. We unpack the drama of so many interlocking relationships around town, within the tribe, and that runtime enriches the experience like maybe a show. But again, this feels distinctly like a movie and deserved of just being a movie rather than a broke up episodic thing just being played back to back or binge style or something like
absolutely.
That.
The heart and the emotion that's felt in the film and what's conveyed to the audience is so deep. You need the time to sink into the environment, which Marty and they just set up so well. Yeah. It really is just a beautiful single piece to tell this entire story. Yeah. To rush, sure, anyone could come in and probably make the 2 hour and 15-minute movie. Mm-hmm. It would be rushed, and that depth wouldn't be felt at all. Yeah. We really feel like we have been told this story in a true, earnest, proper way. Yeah. And like you said, it's justified. Yeah. I'm glad that we both felt that coming away from it.
It's even in the setting, this is such a blend. It's 1920s, but it also feels distinctly like late West a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
The development is all over. They have a shit ton of money because of the oil connected to land, but at the same time as well, it is still impoverished and lawless in ways like a West would feel, or a dying West would feel. And I just feel like our takeaway from the setting couldn't be done with lesser runtime. The slow decline of the tribe requires to unfold gradually, and each killing builds a gravity that lingers the whole movie. It really doesn't go away. And I think that's driven home. If you do watch this, folks, it's important you see the beginning because I feel like it sets the tone as some narration from Molly goes through and kind of not gives away the film, but lets you know that there's a building list of murders that we need to not forget about, because they are very much intended to be forgotten about. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's heartwarming to find out that this soundtrack was done by the great Robbie Robertson, who passed away this year. A longtime friend of Marty, going back to 1978's classic, The Last Waltz. And I would say the music choice is third in line for what I loved about this film. Marty somehow makes blues span across a whole spectrum of moods to fit exactly how he needs them. Again, this 1920s, so like folk and marching songs are used in more upbeat parts to give energy when needed. I mean, I feel like Marty has accomplished something with pairing, and Robinson, with pairing his music like he would in a Goodfellas, like he would in a Wolf of Wall Street, but in this older time period, which is not a factor that I felt with like Gangs of New York or other type of period pieces that Marty has done. And I just hats off to it. I thought this was a phenomenal soundtrack.
Okay.
Yeah. What'd you think about? I mean, you're the blues man.
Yeah.
What'd you think about it?
It was one of the biggest disappointments I felt with the film.
Whoa!
In the film. And it could have been partially I was looking forward to it too much.
Oh, okay.
I knew this was Robbie Robertson. I knew this was the last film he did. For those of you who don't know, just like Robbie Robertson and the band, he is such an integral part to Martin Scorsese for all of his films going back to the mid-'70s. Even if he's not credited in the music department or if he's not credited in as the main music done by or something like that, oftentimes he was still always with Marty. Marty would always run things by him.
Yep.
And officially he was on around 10 or a dozen films officially where he gets the credit for it, kind of. Not only is it special because Robbie died this year.
Yes.
He did work on the movie entirely. Like, it was all him.
Oh, good. Okay.
But also, it was very touching and meaningful for Robertson to be a part of this and to do this film, which I know that Marty was aware of, but he grew up on a reservation. His mom was, I think, until like 9 or something like that. Robbie's mom was from a Canadian Native American tribe, I believe.
Because all the band is Canadian, right? Or
yes,
most of them. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So, and I forget what tribe it was with, but very in tune later in like the aughts, in the 2000 aughts kind of, he formed another band and they did some like tribal music.
Oh, wow.
Tribal based stuff.
Okay.
So very meaningful to Robbie.
Yeah.
I was expecting more. I was expecting to be more present. Oftentimes it's just droning in the background. And I don't mean droning as a really bad thing, but it's quiet, it's slow, and because it's a long film, I was naturally expecting it to the music to help it move in a certain way. You felt that? I mean, you just said that you had
I
kind
think
of felt
it
that.
did.
I wasn't crazy impressed with it. And honestly, one of the main things that I would say about Kill the Irishman is the same thing. Robbie did that music as well.
Really?
And I felt that soundtrack to be lackluster.
Yeah.
And again, kind of background music. And there, oftentimes, it's not, it's a pretty quiet movie. This Killers of the Flower Moon. I was expecting a little bit more punch and something I could feel. Something when I'm thinking about a scene or thinking back to this movie, I have that in the back of my head. That's it helps set a mood a little bit. When you think of Nolan or watching Dunkirk or something like that, even just the ticking of that watch is very resonant with the film. You can feel it almost.
Absolutely. It has a presence.
Big time.
Yeah.
And with this film, I wasn't getting that. I mean, believe me, I was listening, and when it was something, a constant little drum in the back or something like that, it was there. It was present. You could tell that there was thought to it. I was expecting more variety of genre played, and louder and quicker when I felt like it could have helped.
Well, I think with the lack of variety was what I was impressed with it. He uses blues in any type of scene. And,
I was expecting more Native American stuff.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
Interesting.
And not that drums aren't used. They are used. But still, I was expecting more. I'm fine with the blues stuff.
They also have like going on the country, like folk, right. Early folk stuff like that.
Like I knew some of the tracks that he plucked from. And
I thought it was pretty good deep cuts.
And I was expecting more. I didn't think they were deep cuts.
Wow.
I'm more of a blues guy,
you are the blues aficionado.
So I'm just like, all right, he's pulling that. All right, okay,
He's like, I listened to that 3 years ago.
So very touching for everything around Robertson, what the band means to you and I personally.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's funny you say it's on third of best for you. I would say third taking away from it.
Wow. I guess if anything, again, I want to stay away from the arms race of this versus our Oppenheimer. I guess with Nolan, it was such a loud movie. And again, even to the critics of Nolan, like he played right into it, of what people hate about his movies, of the haters out there. I just felt like this in combination with a fresh style story and Marty was just able to do something new, and I feel like he was able to do something new with his soundtrack rather than it just being like, oh, it's like Goodfellas, or it's like, oh, it's like any of the trends that Marty set in his career.
Yes. I think you'd be shocked if you go back and watch Kill the Irishman again.
Or Irishman.
Right, Kill the Irishman, different movie. If you go back and watch The Irishman, you're going to find a lot of similarities.
Really?
I remember you complaining about The Irishman. Money down, I would have thought you had the same feeling about the music on this one to me.
Interesting. Maybe that is worth the rewatch.
I was watching and walking away from it too. It needed a little Nolan-y to it. Not crazy. I didn't need crazy loud.
No. But pacing wise,
I was expecting more to fill kind of the gaps in or to punch.
Yeah.
I'll make one other reference, and maybe people will get this, maybe not. But the Peaky Blinders on Netflix.
Okay.
A lot of talking scenes, a lot of dialogue, and then all of a sudden it's quickly broken up by like a Jack White or Garagey type band or something like that. That's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
That's like trying too hard.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I didn't need it to be crazy loud or anything like that. And it also pulls for some of the music, kind of that 1920s era as well.
Yes.
I just needed something more, invoke a little bit more feeling, help the scene along. It's not just about loudness or anything like that.
Right.
It's about true depth and care in the musical choices themselves. I want it more, and that's why I say I want it more from the Native American stuff. I was expecting a little bit more heart in that.
I think that's a very valid point because in every other ounce of the film, there is this hardcore consideration of the Osage, this respect given to their thing, to their culture, and maybe that is a lacking element.
Dude, even take the trailer.
Right.
They played a Tribe Called Red.
Yep.
And not that I needed a Tribe Called Red in something like this film.
Yeah.
But I was like, that right away, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Yeah. Robbie's going to go ham. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But that's that.
Yeah. Well, then enough with my top three. Let me get to where I do have some gripes.
Okay.
And I feel like, sadly, the lacking element for me is Leo. I feel with him being the center of the story, it affects my feelings on the final act of the film, and a little bit of how that final act is structured with so much runtime. You know, I think his performance-wise, it's 95% great. We still get the yelly Leo, which
it's tame as far as Leo freakouts.
Right.
Thinking about you the whole time in that scene.
That's so funny. I don't even know if we've even fleshed that out on the podcast, but I got some beef with Leo's ace in the hole that he always pulls out, which is him cracking his voice screaming. I do not think it's acting. I think anyone can do it. It's so funny that's a classic.
Yeah,
we're in each other's heads. Yeah, but his acting 95% good here. I think the character is robbed of a meaningful conclusion, and it really just depends on how you see who is the lead here. It really depends on how you see what is the purpose of the story. I think maybe not the correct answer, but I think the takeaway answer is that it is about the Osage. It is about the nation of these people and what has been done to them. But Leo is so pronounced as an actor and as a character that the conclusion is just a bit unsatisfying. I just feel like it kind of slips at the end. One piece of this is the dramatic hit, the punch of the story, happens much earlier than the actual close of the film. So much so that I feel like the last hour of the plot, I don't want to say flounders, but the writing is on the wall for all of our characters in the last hour.
Yeah.
We know what's basically when Jesse Plemons gets introduced. I feel structuring in that way, again, I wasn't upset with the time. In a lesser film, I think I would definitely critique that of just saying that's wasted time and make the punch hit harder. For me, it really only affected Leo's character. At no point did I expect a bow tie ending, and nor did I want that. But the very nature of the story is so messy and so intentionally a little unsatisfying in its truth that I feel like, man, I wanted just a little bit something more concrete around Ernest's relationship with Molly, especially with the movie. Again, you can see this movie in a lot of different ways. The mover of the plot is the romance and is Leo's ambitions. So to feel that structure over 3.5 hours and feel that romance with Molly, I was just looking for more closure with Leo's character. You feel me there?
I agree, and it could have been a 5-minute scene, not even.
Yeah.
It could have been a little bit something, and at the same time,
it really comes down to that last interaction too.
But at the same time, it was so purposeful.
Yeah,
because it wasn't everything you said that the movie is about. However, really, when it comes down to it, it is about the Osage people at this very specific time.
Yeah,
and it's about telling this story of this period.
Yeah,
and we just used our host to tell that story was Leo. You know what I mean? And kind of just a swiping him aside, and for the finishing of the story, which I do love. You know, the last 5 minutes I really liked, and the way
absolutely,
they really bring it to a close.
Absolutely. Especially that kind of break in reality that comes with it. Yeah.
So it felt very intentional, but dissatisfying. But I walked away saying, like, wow, that was such an incredible telling of a true event that actually happened in history. But it's tough to walk away and say, unbelievable Leo performance.
Because it's not the purpose.
It's not the purpose, even though that's what it's about mostly.
And even though it's top build characters and whatnot, there's a conflict there, I feel. But yeah, that's really my main gripe with it. And again, how that affects structure, how that affects the last hour specifically, how it affects the role of Ernest. Not really connected to the performances, though.
No, for sure. And it's hard. I was trying not to go back and be like, oh, what would I do different? Because it's so easy to, you know, I don't even know what's backseat direct.
Armchair direct.
Right, armchair direct. But it's, you know, it probably could have done it a little bit different, especially in that last hour, because that's almost should be Leo at the highlight, the unraveling of Leo and trying to.
That's when we need the scream.
Trying to maintain and control. It's you know, falls flat a little bit, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to keep on making excuses and be like, well, maybe that, but it did. That's what's felt.
And that was kind of my really only like as far as major critique. I feel like that's where I kind of landed with it. And again, a little bit of a bias, a little bit of a hatchet I need to bury with Leo. So just to be honest, like I said, folks, this is a very strong entry for this year, and a year that already has some heavy hitters. I'm actually very excited come Tom Daly's time. Very excited just to kind of look back on this year, because even if something's not super strong, I feel like there's been a lot of iconic movies, a lot of movies that just kind of bring it home for their creators, and Killers of the Flower Moon kind of hits on so many levels. Trust me, this is not blind praise either for a veteran director making a big movie. I fully went in expecting to have a lot of problems with this connected to the runtime, and was really left wanting to see more. The big question here is, how much is it really worth your time with that runtime? I think for me, it was very much worth it. I'm honestly excited to hear from just different perspectives on this, because while I feel like we've done a good job, Tom, as giving a balanced opinion, it's I don't know, I feel like there is some blind praise around this movie. Not saying that it needs hate in any way, but I feel like people are just kind of plugging in and saying, "Oh, it's Marty, it's good," you know.
Yeah, the only real hate it's getting is the runtime.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but I feel like what Marty has been able to do here with the Osage Nation, with this very unique setting of 1920s, not really industrial, but still West, and not only that, of course, a true story that doesn't throw it in your face and deserves to be told. I feel like what Marty has done, this high praise, comes close to a Goodfellas in the sense that Marty was able to put a spotlight on the mafia culture of America and Italian Americans. And in a similar way, he's been able to spotlight something that probably a vast majority of people watching this film do not have experience with, do not have a background with, and is able to do justice by it, to place us front and center to what we need to know about this time, this period, and these people as well. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give Killers of the Flower Moon an 85. It makes it. It makes it.
Whoa!
Yeah, it makes it.
Big boy alert, then. 85%. Wow.
I think.
You didn't see it twice, did you?
No. Yeah, I'm already breaking my rule with that.
85%.
Well, since it's two movies in one, I'll count it as I'll count it as twice.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think again, where I stuck with it is that. Do I even have a passing interest in the Osage Nation or anything like that? No, but this movie made me care in the way that I think a Goodfellas makes you care about Italian American mafia type of experience. It's a spotlight and doing it justice to the highest degree.
Okay.
So
I feel as though everything that you just spoke about too, the tone of the film, the heart and the consideration, it's all there. It's all complete. It's really felt. and it feels like an important film. I'm glad he made it. I'm glad the care and consideration was put into it. It's totally felt the depth that we go into to learn about the people, the time period. Everything is there. Much like how I said our two main characters are on rails and have to act in a certain way because they need to be this character.
Sure.
The film can only go too far, and the film needs to be a certain way. In some ways, I feel like it could have been better with the music and some other things, or ending the film, things like that.
Yeah.
I even thought that maybe the editing of it or the style of shooting felt quite boring and quite run-of-the-mill the way it was shot. I wasn't wowed by the cinematography of it.
Not a History Channel vibe like Napoleon.
No, definitely not. I felt it to be very tame in a certain way.
Yeah.
And in a big movie like this, telling such a, obviously made to bring such this big story to people's attention for the very first times. I didn't know about it. You didn't know about it.
Exactly.
I was expecting more in the way that it was actually done and produced.
Okay.
The sets, the cast, everything. We didn't mention Lily Gladstone too much. Phenomenal.
Yeah, great.
Phenomenal. I thought she was awesome. I can't wait to see her in more stuff.
Yeah.
I really hope she gets more phone calls now and gets more roles.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ray Romano did not get the phone calls after Irishman, which I was hoping for because I loved him in Irishman. But anyway, I really hope that she's nominated. I hope that she wins for supporting actress.
Yep.
And if she doesn't win, I hope she's at least nominated because I thought Lily Gladstone was phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And a character very much on rails, had to be a certain stoic type of way, but crushed it. Like her, I'm watching her and be like, she's doing such a good job right now in this. So walking away from it, though, felt it was such a beautiful, it was great. And yet, coming away from the film, talking about Andrew in the car, I don't know if I was talking to you about it as well. I couldn't stop it. I realized I was talking so much about Marty's next film and how I can't wait for that film to come.
Oh, okay.
And in much way, I feel like this is a stepping stone because in my heart, I'm still waiting for a Marty movie to wow me.
Okay.
And to go back 30 years and to reinvent himself a little bit.
Interesting.
For that reason, I absolutely love this film. I want people to see it and to experience it. I think it's important. This gets 2 shoes polished, no laces.
No. I'm a bit confused on where that even lands. I think we're lost in the sauce a little bit. I like the polish. The polish indicates what?
It's okay. No, so it gets 2 shoes and no laces.
Yes.
But it gets a very good 2 shoes.
It's some shiny shoes.
But yeah. Lace polish, it gives it that half star. So if 2 shoes is 3 stars, it would be, I guess, 3.5 stars.
Here's a question, because I actually forgot that you really liked Irishman. Do you think Irishman is better? Ooh, I
don't want to answer that question right now. I'm going to plead the fifth. I'm going to plead the fifth.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I was really going back and forth thinking about it a lot. First thing I basically asked Andrea in the car ride home was, okay, this or Oppenheimer, which one is better?
Right.
She liked this better.
Okay.
And originally I went Oppenheimer. And I honestly am waffling, but because
now.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I mean, as internet-y that is, it really is the arms race.
Yeah.
I mean, which one comes out on top?
And to be fair, I mean, you gave Oppenheimer an 84, you gave this an 85. So there's your answer.
No, true. I even forgot where I put Oppenheimer. I was trying to stay away from that. Marty has been on press, and he's like, one thing that he's been saying when going to like film festivals and whatnot is that it's all about just experiencing film. It's not which one's better in the box office and whatnot. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, it is kind of.
It is. I kind of like that, though. I agree with them. And to be honest, I don't know why. People were talking about this was going to be it. This was going to do it. Like, this was going to be Marty's big box office success. I saw a couple reports of that. I wasn't seeing it at all. For the big thing, it's 3.5 hours.
Yeah. It doesn't have the slots.
Right. 1, you have less run times.
Yeah.
But 2, you have less people wanting to go to the film.
Yeah.
Sitting there for 4 hours, knowing it's going to be on Apple TV Plus very soon.
Fantastic point. I feel like the Apple branding to this expects a streaming element. It's like, why do I have to sit through this? I can pause it then if I need to go to, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And even though I only gave this film 2 shoes, I still really want people to go see it and see it in theaters.
Sure, absolutely.
Real quick theater note too, since we're already running way too long.
Oh yeah, I got other theater notes.
I went to an independent theater, but like a great one.
Oh really?
It was fantastic. The
Cool.
sound was better than what I'm used to. The seats were very good. Wasn't the Dolby cinema, Wasn't IMAX, but a very good.
You saved that for
film.
Taylor Swift,
right? Oh, speaking of soundtrack, Taylor Swift was playing right next door to us, and there's
you heard it.
Oh, the last hour of the film talking about bad blood. You know what I mean? I mean, it was literally like it was so loud at one point. It just was kind of quite funny. Everyone was well behaved in my theater. Seems like the only people that needed to go to the bathroom were in my aisle, but that's fine. And then I had this older couple next to me that was so ridiculous that I at first I was very angry, and there was going to be murder in our theater, but it just turned into be very funny because clueless, like something was obviously going to happen on screen, and then something happened to be like, oh my, talking to her husband, oh my god. You know, Jesse Plemons shows up, and she's literally very loudly talking to her husband. They should be looking for the uncle. Damn, why are they wasting time with him? They should be looking for the uncle. And then literally said, like,
full commentary.
2 hours in the film. I didn't think he was going to be the bad guy. I mean, it was very cute and like so innocent,
but annoying,
and constant. Every single time there was a death. Oh my god!
There's a lot.
Oh my god!
That's so funny.
So, anyway, theater experience. How about you?
Theater experience was good. Really, more so. I had some notes on another film that I dropped from this week. Watched it full. Are we wrapping up?
Okay, wrap it up.
We're done with the...
Any other comments, Vince? We're going to roll credits.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was... I was traveling this week. I needed my valuable time to watch a movie, but there was a movie that I just couldn't stomach. 2014's While We're Young. It's Adam Driver. It's Ben Stiller. It's Noah Baumbach directing and writing. I was like, oh, yeah, this is perfect. I'll put it next to Past Lives. Yeah.
Right.
My God. Wow, did I hate this movie.
Are you serious? What was it called again?
While We're Young. It's like Ben Stiller is like a wannabe hipster in Brooklyn, and Adam Driver like gaslights him into getting a movie made. It is the most nauseating script I've ever... Oh, my God. Okay,
so you're not a Noah Baumbach fan.
I think so. I think...
Because you didn't like White Noise. I like White Noise.
Exactly. I think Marriage Story is the outlier for me. I think Marriage Story just... It peaks, and then that's my little time with Noah Baumbach, and that's it.
And I will note, Greta Gerwig was not writing this because they were
yes.
Did she help with Marriage Story?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, because I believe she helped with White Noise.
Yeah,
they worked on White Noise together,
right, and acting in it as well.
Right, and then of course she wrote He didn't help with Barbie. She did Barbie.
I think so.
Okay.
But wow, this While We're Young. Oh my God, it was like it was the most. Has been wanna recapture the youth, wanna be hipster. Oh my God, Brooklyn.
Wow.
Oh my God,
and Adam Driver too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. And then I put it on. I was like, oh, that's great. No, I straight up dropped it.
You canceled the film.
I canceled it. I deleted the notes. I said, nope. I would just be shitting on it too much.
Wow.
It was just, I just couldn't stomach it.
Well, where's Naomi Watts been? Okay, all right, so, that's shocking, Vin, actually. Okay,
yeah.
Vin, thank you. So, anything else or no?
I rewatched John Wick 4. That was pretty good.
You watch all these long movies. You got no time.
No, John Wick was skipping around.
Okay,
I skipped to only the action scenes.
People go back and listen to our John Wick episode.
Yeah.
Okay, Vin, thank you so much for stopping by here, watching all these films, even though you were traveling. You know, folks, I just want to say again, we're totally producer supported here. Again, you know, and if you're getting value from this or enjoying this at all, if you could just donate whatever amount that you're getting from this.
Sure.
So dailyratings.com and the donations tab. You know, Vin and I collectively weren't even in this state for like 20 days this month.
Yeah,
but we tried very hard to make sure content was out to you. So we're definitely making an effort here to constantly keep on bringing something to you. Vin's still rocking the socials and everything if you want to check us out there. Just updated the website, so that's looking much more fresh because, you know, just trying to keep up with it. Very, very tough month to get stuff done. So we hope you enjoyed this month. And like I said, if you're getting any value from it, if you could go to thedailyratings.com and just send something our way, become a producer also. So Vin, thank you so much for watching all these films. This was a blast. Folks at home, really was. We'll run it down one more time. We have Pineapple Express with a 66%, Past Lives with a 73%, Pain Hustlers with a 37, Five Nights at Freddy's with a 50, and Killers of the Flower Moon with the 2 shoes with some polish, and of course, a Big Boy Alert with an 85%. Folks, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, folks, if you would, could you give us a good rating, or just tell a friend about us? And if you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, like I said, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you receive from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, folks, but we want to be completely independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.